And that's a strange thing because I don't really look at myself on the same level as a lot of these folks as far as like the talent they have for their craft versus the talent that I have for mine. But I'm starting to see that the reason why they're becoming peers or the reason why they sit in my chair is because I'm as good at my craft as they are at theirs.
There you go.
Respect.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm starting to, you know, just kind of build confidence on like how I've built a bit of this life for myself.
What up, though, Black Fridays family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Before we get into today's episode with today's guest, I need you to make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop a comment, go ahead and share some previous episodes with your friends, family, loved ones, all the above. And then also make sure you check us out on all major streaming platforms as well. Now that we got that business out of the way, I got to introduce you to someone who is making being social very cool. None other than the founder of Social Club, St. Martin, and Shop Talk. Sebastian, how you doing, brother?
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. I'm doing good, Denzel. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Absolutely. Had to, man. Yeah. And definitely been a fan of a lot of the work that you've been doing. I was a patron before I moved out of state and did my bid out of state for a while of the Social Club. Yeah. And so shout out to my boy Lionel.
Yes, sir.
Still keep up with him on social medias and see him every so often. So I definitely used to be in a Social Club, and it had a certain je ne sais quoi about it for sure. It turned back in the, I know it's a different location now, but back in the Wayne State days, it definitely was a aura, as the kids say nowadays, about it. So wanted to just kind of, if you don't mind, start there and then just kind of ask you about your journey leading up to that point. And like, what things had to fall in place in order for you to kind of land in the aspect of, I want to be able to open a barbershop and I want it to feel like this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for supporting us all these years. Lionel's been with us for about a decade. That was our first hire.
Shout out to Lionel.
Shout out to Lionel, man. Pontiac guy. Came to Wayne State. Met him at Wayne State through one of my best friends. Actually, you know, two of my best friends, they're twins, Ray and Rich Diggs. And I called them. At the time, I was working at Kaplan Career Services. I was a career services advisor trying to save up money in order to open up this barbershop. I had a vision opening this barbershop. My job at Kaplan was to make about 60 phone calls a day trying to get the students that graduated from Kaplan hired. And, you know, I hated the job because it was a bit of a scam. You know what I mean? Like they were kind of scamming those students. And so I was actually trying to find them, you know, gainful employment, you know, but it was like, if you got somebody a job for a day or even got them training and they didn't take the job, that qualified as placement, job placement. So I really hated that job. And I remember the day I wanted to quit, my boss said, she said, if you weren't so earnest, if you weren't so honest, you'd be a lot better at corporate America. And that was a very jarring thing to hear. And now I understand what she meant by that. But at the time, it was like crazy. Like, what? You just told me if I was more dishonest, if I was less honest, I'll be better at this. And that's not somewhere I wanted to be. But I remember being there, and I remember calling Ray and Rich. And I said, look, man, y'all are still students at Wayne State. I'm looking to open a barbershop on campus. I want y'all to help me promote. They were resident advisors. And I said, I want y'all to help me promote this barbershop. And I'll give y'all X amount of dollars off haircuts. We want to go after student organizations, different social clubs, so on and so forth. And
you had already been a barber up until this point?
Yeah, I've been a barber at that point for about 10 years, about 5 years professionally. But I started cutting hair at 15 and I opened a barbershop. At 25. I opened a barbershop at 25. And so I called them and they said, look, man, we're going to help you promote anyway. You don't need to pay us anything. You don't need to give us a discount of anything on anything. And the first way they helped was helping me find my first employee, which was Lionel. And I had no idea how difficult it would be to staff a barbershop or staff any company. But early on, I had a vision for this brand. I wanted to call it Campus Cuts early on. I wanted to open up a barbershop on every college campus in America because I understood there was a gap. When Denzel goes to school, when Sebastian goes to school, when Amanda goes to school, we don't have a place to get our hair cut or our hair done if we're going to a new city. And so it's like, how do we create these safe havens? You know, you've got school, you've got church, you've got barbershops and salons. What church do I go to? You know, what salon do I go to? What barbershop do I go to? Especially in a city like Detroit, you know, a kid moving from Kalamazoo or Flint might not be comfortable trekking, you know, on 7 Mile trying to find the best barbershop to go to. And so I thought, there's a captive audience here. How do we, you know, capture them and give them a place that is easy for them to navigate and meet them where they're at? And so that was the kind of I guess impetus of the idea, where I just felt there needed to be a barbershop on campus, and I built a huge book of business already in the dorm rooms over the years while I was a student at Wayne State. So I studied journalism there, built the book of business, and just felt like I need to get this shop open. But it took several years to actually be able to do that. But yeah, Lionel was the first guy to believe in the vision.
Wow.
You know?
And what, I guess, kind of, when did the idea spark to you that it was going to become a reality? In terms of, like, obviously you had the vision, talked to your homeboys about it, had the opportunity to be able to bring somebody on or figure that out. But when did it start getting real to you, in terms of whether when you got the keys to the building, or like where were you at that point?
So I think it became real, and I told my brother this, it became real when I learned how to write a business plan. Now, business plans don't really matter, in my opinion. But at the time, it really did matter. And it mattered because this was the first time where I found this template. I used a resource called SCORE, score.org. And they had a business plan template. And the template was a series of questions, right? And so in each section, whether it's the marketing section or the financial section or whatever section it would ask you a question. You would answer that question. And once you answered all these questions, you had a business plan. Now, most questions I knew the answer to just from operating barbershops in the past as like a manager or a barber, you know what I mean? But some questions I didn't know the answer to, and I had to do research. And in doing that research, I was able to find the answer to every question, right? I found answers like the customer barber relationship is 7 years on average. So I found all this data that I could back up with research. And that was a really powerful feeling, right? To feel like I had autonomy, right? Not to be guessing, you know, and being uncertain on, is my idea good or can I do this? I had researched all this data and kind of found this what do you call it, wellspring or just this wealth of knowledge. And when I assembled that business plan through answering all these questions, I realized I had a new skill set, and this thing could be a tool for me articulating my ideas. And I can share those ideas clearly with, stakeholders, whether it's an investor, whether it's a landlord, whether it's a building owner and I'm trying to get them to sell me the building, whether it's a bank, whether it's an employee, right, or a partner. I could answer questions with research and have evidence that, this was a solid idea and that was well thought out. And once I had done that one time, I said, wow, I can do this for anything. Like, I don't have to, kind of use feeling or emotion really, which was not the case, right? Like, that's not true. But that's what I was thinking at the time. Like, I don't have to guess. I can know. Right. And I think there still is a component of guessing and experimentation. in entrepreneurship, but your job is to not guess. Your job is to know.
Right.
Right. And so that was the beginning for me, where it was like, no, this is real. I'm really going to do this, because I went from not knowing to knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I went from ignorance to knowledge. And I think that's the journey of life.
Yeah. And it started to click at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely going to get back into more behind the scenes of your business journey. But I got to take a pause to introduce you to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Fridays. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm sure you got some bars from us. I mean, like, you couldn't have not come here with no bars. That's impossible.
Rap bars?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bars?
Yeah, man, we gotta get to it.
Damn, that's crazy.
You don't have to freestyle. It's actually just a random assortment of questions.
Okay.
That's all about you. So you just got to answer each one.
Yeah, I don't got no bars. Man, that's crazy. That'd be crazy. I'm talking. I've been listening to Sada a lot. Sada baby a lot. I'm
you
preparing for an interview. I don't think we can say any of those bars.
Yeah, you about to spaz out. All right, so I got to ask you this question because given your background as a barber and owning a barbershop, growing up, did you ever go to the barber and point to one of them pictures and pick one of the numbers off the... Of course. Whether it's in Flint, whether it's in Kalamazoo, whether it's here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We know that.
What number did you get?
I don't know, man. Probably number 1, number 2. You know, I was the guy, my parents had me going, super high and tight ball fade.
Okay.
You know, against the grain. That was damn near ball.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That had to be number 1.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What year did you graduate high school?
04.
04. Yeah, okay. So you got me by a few years. I was 09, but I had that same ball fade. Black boys growing up in the 90s, you had that ball fade.
Period.
Like it wasn't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Yeah, straight up.
Yeah. I remember being in the barbershop with my guy Vince, and Vince's hands smell like weed. And Vince, he was an older guy. And it was like, I remember giving me a ball fade, and it was clean. And I was like, no, take it lower. Cut it down some more. Take it lower. I don't know what I was on this day. Because as a kid, you want your hair as long as possible.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I was just feeling the baldy, bro.
The Chris Webber.
I remember I went to school, bro, and they clowned me so crazy on the football field. Like, bro, what are you doing? I thought I was sweet. But Vince scalped me with the weed hands. Yeah, man.
Oh, man. Shout out to Vince.
Yeah, crazy. Shout out to Vince.
So I know you said you preparing for an interview and you've been listening to a lot of Sada lately, but on the regular, if you just driving around in your car or like locking in, trying to get some work in, what you listening to nowadays? I'm
listening to Yusef Days nowadays, man. Yusef Days is a jazz musician. I'm not sure where from. Maybe, I think he's from Europe. I'm not sure where he's from, but he's nice. Mm-hmm. Crazy YouTube. I would recommend everybody look up Yusef Days.
Okay.
YUSSEF DAYES, Yusef Days. Go on YouTube, look at his Japan experience, look at his Malibu experience. Just a brilliant musician, and it's kind of like, I don't even know what to call this type of jazz, but it's like kind of experimental and just beautiful music. And then the visuals on his YouTube, incredibly cinematic. Okay. So it's inspiring, man. It's inspiring to see somebody be that inspired, by their craft and become an expert at that level. So Yusef Days is definitely one. And then probably Larry June and the 2 Chainz new album. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is not Larry, he's not a peer, but like I'm finding myself starting to become peers with people that I'm fans of. Yeah. People that I'm a fan of. And that's cool, whether it's their manager or whether it's themselves.
It's a connection point somewhere.
Yeah. Like whether it's a client, and that's a strange thing because I don't really look at myself on the same level as a lot of these folks as far as like the talent they have for their craft versus the talent that I have for mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to see that the reason why they're becoming peers, or the reason why they sit in my chair, is because I'm as good at my craft as they are at theirs.
There you go.
Respect.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm starting to, you know, just kind of build confidence on like how I've built a bit of this life for myself.
For sure.
A dope experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you, with Shop Talk, you've had a chance to run into a lot of those people or meet those people with your platform. Who is somebody that surprised you? It could be via Shop Talk or any other interaction, but they surprised you just in the sense of like, oh man, like I ain't think that we would connect like this when you had the chance to interact with them.
You know what's crazy? It's not a celebrity, bro. I grew up on 9999 Granville, right off Joy Road. So Joy Road in Granville. And I remember I was, this would have been maybe 7-8 years ago. So Harvard Business School came to our shop and they did this thing called MBAs Across America. And it was maybe 5 or 6 Harvard students, maybe 4 Harvard students. And they worked with different small businesses around the country and helped us understand, you know, the kind of nitty and gritty of our business. And we challenged them a lot as well, right? Because, you know, business school students, if you don't practice business, if you're not an entrepreneur, you can really solve with theory and read about it, but you have to get in the game.
Yeah.
And I think these MBAs were those types of MBAs. And I think that when they left, they were impressed. So they came back a year later. And they shot a reality show, and it was on CNN, HLN. And one of the things that we did was we went to like our origins. So we drove to Joy Road, and like we went to my old house, and it was 2 kids outside playing about the same age, my brother and I, when we lived in that house. And I said, yo, when y'all live here? And they were like, yeah, we live here, our mom in the house. I said, can you grab your mom? And so they went in the house and they grabbed their mom, and she came outside, and I was gonna ask her if we could see the inside of the house and like, you know, bring the cameras in. And I like kind of fell back like, nah, we're not gonna do that. But I was like, yeah, we got these cameras filming the house because I used to live here and, you know, I grew up here. And she was like, I know who you are. I said, what? And she said, yeah, you do this thing called Shop Talk. And that was the first time. Now this was years ago. This was, we weren't filming Shop Talk. We were just doing it in our shops as an event. Yeah. We didn't know what podcasting was really. We were just doing a community event. No cameras, just people and like panelists, you know? And the fact that she knew what that was crazy. You know, what are the chances of me going back to the home that I grew up in and the person living there knows who I am based on what I do in the community? I think I knew it was special before that. But having her validated was like, no, this is special. This is real community impact. It's not on some cool shit. It doesn't have to be a celebrity. It doesn't. It's like it's getting to people. Right. And now it's fire.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And you said that you grew up in the off of Joy Road. What was your neighborhood, Coney?
My neighborhood. So I was too young at that point. We weren't even eating Coney yet. Okay. Whatever one is closest to Horace Mann, probably. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Horace Mann Elementary School. But yeah, we lived there. We lived on Joy Road for probably about 3 years before moving to Kalamazoo. Okay. And then bouncing to Flint and then bouncing back here. Gotcha. So I've kind of bounced all around Michigan. Okay. But yeah, I don't know.
Did y'all have Coney's up there in Flint and Kazoo?
In Kalamazoo, yeah. In Flint, you have like
diners,
a lot of tacos, a lot of like Philly cheesesteaks for some reason. You know,
that's super random.
Yeah. Little John's cheesesteaks, crazy. Okay. And then I think it's a taco spot called La Familia. You got to go there. We call it Greasy Tacos, but okay, yeah, crazy.
If I'm in the area,
get the tacos
for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for partaking in Freestyle Fridays. Thank you for engaging in the randomness, and wanted to go back into the aspect of developing the the business in terms of the social club. And so now that you had your plan in place, you had your people, you had like your first person you could bring on as an additional barber. And then, so what was it like to continue to build out the space over the years, and then also the essence of like the space and how the experience that people get when they come in, because it's definitely a top tier experience in my personal experience and actually being a customer there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So I think, one of the purposes of opening that shop was wanting to have a place where barbers could kind of be proud of working, including myself, right? I wanted to have a place where I was proud to work. I think there's a little bit of shame, I think, in blue collar work at times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much pressure on, especially now, internet culture, social media culture, being a hustler, being a scammer, making, millions of dollars, at all costs. And I think we've gotten away from like, it's cool to make $60,000
right, and
owning your time. It's cool to make, you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars as a barber today, right? But we all carry shame with us in some way or another. And I think my job was understanding my own shame and understanding the craft. It's like there's a lot of pride in that as well, right? We're making people feel better about themselves on a daily basis. You come out of the shop feeling different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love that kind of instant gratification. But I also know that like if I could create a space where people were proud to come every day, that was beautiful, that would be inspiring as well. And so I did the best that I could early on. I saved $27,000 from this job at Kaplan, refund checks, and then also kind of crowdsourcing about $7,000. So after 3 business plans got denied, they approved the 4th business plan. That was Wayne State, the landlord, basically getting my business plan and saying, no, this isn't good enough, or no, we don't like this idea, or no, we don't, So after saving the money and showing them my personal financial statement, they finally approved it. And the goal was 1, create a space where barbers are proud to work. 2, create a space that can bring community together. And then 3, create a brand or a company that is environmentally sustainable. Can we recycle hair? Are we using paper cups that can be recycled? How are we eliminating, junk mail from the waste stream? Like, what are the things that we can do to create a triple bottom line, socially responsible business? And we did that, right? And so that was the beginning of it. Again, like once you can answer all these questions that the business plan asks you, then you can start to and you have those fundamentals down, then you can start to customize it. So every month, every year, every time a client would come back, they'd be like, yo, this plan is newer, this is newer, that's newer. And over time, it just kept evolving. And then one of our kind of sustainability efforts was, can we, deconstruct the home? And we did that. We worked with Phil Cooley from Slow's Barbecue. We demoed a home in Corktown, and we took all the wood, right? It was a blighted house. It had burned down, and we took all that wood and used it as bookshelves and, made the space dope. But it was always kind of like hodgepodge together. It was never a legit contractor, helping us make it work until one day, man, I was like, this is just not right. And me and Lionel just started taking the ceiling down. We had decided over a couple weeks that like, we were going to renovate this barbershop. A competitor barbershop came in town from New York. I felt the way about it. They have an incredibly nice shop, right? The owner has become a friend now, Sam Buffa from Fellow Barber. But at the time, they had like $40 haircuts. This is at a time where haircuts were like $20.
Right.
And they were coming in from New York. And I remember reading a newspaper article that featured us, them, and like 2 other local barbershops. And the article said something like, finally a proper barbershop is coming to Detroit. And I thought that was so disrespectful. Because really it was also saying that finally an upscale white-owned barbershop is coming to Detroit.
Right.
And so the comments went crazy. And everybody that heard that little dog whistle, destroyed that article, that headline. Mm-hmm. And that just kind of like lit a fire under me. And we demoed our barbershop after demoing that house and building these bookshelves. And then I set out to, work with the contract and do it the right way. Mm-hmm. But that took money.
Yeah.
And I got ahead of myself and demoed the shop without the money to actually fix it. So it took about 1.5 years to properly raise the capital to make the shop look like what you remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's at the Wayne State location?
The Wayne State location, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you go through that phase and that process, and then you are able to start hosting, or I'm not sure when it coincides, but hosting community events and things that's focused on such as the shop talks and things like that, and then actually starting to build that media entity. But what was that pivot like to say, okay, hey, we have this great establishment. We starting to get our foot in and understanding what we're doing and what we're offering. Let's take it up a notch and then start offering these events and doing some things a little bit different to reach the people that we serving. Yeah,
Shop Talk started in 2013, I would say. We opened in 2012. We renovated the shop in 2013. And at the end of 2012 is when Harvard came. I'm sorry, we started Shop Talk maybe in 2014. So I think a year in, HBS came. And that following year, when they came back, we not only renovated the shop, but we'd started doing Shop Talk. Mm-hmm. And so that started because we just had so many dope people from the city coming to the shop. One day it'd be Ant Fiddler, one day it'd be Dwelle, one day it'd be Shades, one day it'd be Joy Bell, who graduated from Wayne State, and then went to the NFL. He'd be back in town, before he came to the Lions. And college professor, the president of the university, students in there talking to their professors, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was just a vibe of like information sharing. And we said, we need to be more intentional about this, because Denzel comes in the shop and he gets a haircut, it's 30 minutes in and out. But like, what happened to when you would come in the shop and wait 2-3 hours and then chop it up with everybody? Yeah. Now, technology allowed us to like create more convenience where you can get in and out, because we don't have 3 hours to just sit around. Right. But what if people want to do that? Mm-hmm. And so we just said, let's create an event that kind of pays homage to the old days in the barbershop, but do it with technology and this new intention of, kind of a panel discussion. And it just worked out great. And my guy, Dave Merritt, was the first person to do that with us. Dave, he's like, I want to do a pop-up shop at the Social Club. Mm-hmm. And I
feel like I might have came to that pop-up shop.
Okay, yeah. Merritt Goodness. And then, so we said, well, we should do a panel, and I think we called it Social Work the first time. That was the name of his capsule collection. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're the Social Club, so it just made sense. That's why he wanted to do the pop-up at the Social Club. And we just had great synergy. We co-hosted this first Shop Talk together. We didn't know what the name of it was going to be. We actually crowdsourced the name. Should we call it Shop Talk? Should we call it Social Work? Mm-hmm. Everybody said definitely Shop Talk. 2014, I believe, we started doing Shop Talk. And then after we kind of built up this audience and saw outsiders coming in, we kind of pivoted to like this new design. But the idea for Shop Talk came from just having access to thought leaders and outliers, and then being willing to share their knowledge with our community of customers. Mm-hmm. We didn't. It wasn't any more thought than that until we did the first or second one. Then it was like, wow, Pharrell can sit in that chair, and this person, like anybody can sit in the chair and tell their story. There's so many people that have everybody has a story, right? And so it's a matter of like, how do we do a good job of helping them tell that story in this place? And then we realize that when people sit in that chair and they're getting a haircut while telling their story, it's a very leveling experience. If you're a celebrity, no matter who you are, and you're sitting in the chair getting a haircut, it's vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And there's 30, 40 people sitting there watching you go through that very intimate experience. and you're not looking your best until you get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it was natural to our guests, and they felt comfortable sharing with our community. They felt safe. And it was just dope, you know, at that time to see that experience. Then it just kept evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was something revolutionary at that period in time for shops and then maybe either other businesses to do platforms like that, host platforms like that, I should say?
Revolutionary. Define that.
Kind of like pushing the envelope of like what's possible for these type of institutions, I should say.
I think it was innovative.
Okay,
maybe that's the word I think it was innovative for sure. I think revolutionary could be. I think certain shop talks were revolutionary.
Okay.
I think that, you know, revolutionaries who use the barbershop for moving the culture forward, you know, during the civil rights movement, absolutely were revolutionary.
Gotcha.
And that was brought to my attention by Casey Gerald, one of the HBS, the founder of MBAs Across America. He said, man, I don't think you even realize what you're doing. I'm like, well, what am I doing? He said, you know, barbershops used to be like barbershops, churches. These were the safe havens to have community conversations when you weren't safe having these types of conversations elsewhere. These were like the secret meeting spots. Yeah. And so that was the context that I was drawn from and didn't even realize it.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So I think shop talk in general as a platform is revolutionary, but I don't think that was necessarily my intention.
Gotcha.
I think it was innovative in that, and I think revolutionary meaning like we weren't necessarily trying to challenge the status quo. Although we did, because I think the revolutionary part of it could be a kind of revolution as far as education is concerned. Okay. This is informal education, learning from actual thought leaders, people that have actually done it. You know, and we looked at our guests as kind of adjunct professors, you know, and this is a community classroom. But, you know, I'm reading a book right now, Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton. That's different. You know, what Zeke is doing with New Era Detroit. Yeah. That's revolution. For sure. Where you're really helping our community, an underserved community, with real resources. The resource that we gave was, again, information. Yeah. So that's important, but I would say that's more innovation than revolution.
Got you. Yeah. Make perfect sense. Yeah. And did your journalism background, did that influence the opportunity to turn that into more of a media platform? Because it goes from the community-based events where people can pull up, but then turns into now you're able to broadcast this to more people. Yeah, man,
I think that's a good call out. And I think that early on, I always wanted to have a media publication. I wanted to call it MADE, Money, Attitude, Direction, Education, after Memphis Bleek's one of his albums back in the day. And I like acronyms a lot, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But this would have been like the different, I guess, segments of the magazine or the publication. And so when I went to Wayne State to study journalism, I went there with the intention of starting a magazine. And when I started cutting hair at 15, I didn't realize that the barbershop was kind of the most, what's the term I'm looking for? Current affairs. It's a current affairs publication. Right. The barbershop is, right? Yep. It's just not necessarily publicized on a platform. And so for me, you know, my identity was starting to catch up with my idea. And so, over time, it started to make sense that I have a publication in this barbershop. We just have to document what's happening here and publish it. And so, Shop Talk started to turn into, and the Social Club itself started to turn into, in my eyes, a media company. And I think that was a bit of a misstep, you know, because these are separate things. Yes, they work together, but these are separate companies. And I had to learn over time as an entrepreneur, you can separate things, so yeah. But yeah, journalism definitely played a role in how I thought about, and the vision I had for, and still have for Shop Talk. Yeah.
In that separation, what things did you have to go to identify what you needed to do to build Shop Talk as a media entity versus in addition to the social club? Team,
right? Team and clarity, right? Your team will tell you like, yo, bro, you got too many ideas. Like Lionel's like, I came here to cut hair. You're shutting the shop down early to do Shop Talk. That's affecting the bread. You know what I mean? So listening to your team, failure will teach you a lot if you listen to that and learn from it versus like try to run away from it and fear it. So I would say experience, bro. Experience is the best teacher, and it's taught me these things work together, but they're not the same, And so St. Martin, for example, you could think, these are complementary services.
Yes.
A haircut and hair care products, for sure. Complementary products, but they might need different balance sheets. They might need different income statements. They might need to be two separate companies, right, under one holding company.
Right.
You know what I mean? Different multiples, different staffing, different, it's different. You know what I mean? Different capitalization. And so you learn through trying one thing and it not working. And you've got to look in the mirror and figure out like, is it me? What is it? And if you are really introspective, you can figure out the answer to those things. And if you have good people around you helping you, learn, then you just try different things as well. So I think, what I've learned to this point is the only thing about those things that are the same is me, right? I'm the intersection between the Social Club, Shop Talk, and St. Martin, but they don't necessarily need to be the same entity, and they all take different things to be successful.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so speaking of St. Martin, because you talk about the ideas that you have, and I can tell that you're a visionary for sure, but then obviously putting action to it as well. So at St. Martin, you just birthed this new product within the last year, correct? And I think I saw somewhere that took about 2 years or maybe about a 2-year process to create, but number one, let me make sure I understand this and try and put my business hat on. Is that a horizontal integration or vertical integration with St. Martin and the hair care products?
I would say vertical. I think ultimately, we're going to own distribution.
Yeah.
Through our barbershops. Hopefully we can own manufacturing one day. And certainly the customer comes from the Social Club. Yeah. But I don't know yet, man. Okay. I don't know yet. I think I have a vision for it, but it may.
It could turn into something else.
It could turn into something else. It could be horizontal. Right now, we could just focus on distribution through Ulta, through Target. Yeah. It could have nothing to do with our partners that end up owning social clubs, right? It may. The marketing side, right? Shop Talk could support it, but again, we don't know because we don't have enough data yet.
Okay.
And I think although we've done Shop Talk for a very long time, we've done it in different ways, right? We've done it in person with no camera. We've done it on tour. We've done it on stage with cameras. But I think what we have now, doing it in a crib, with multiple episodes being shot per day.
Yep.
We'll try some product placement.
Okay. I like that.
But we'll see if the customer wants that. We'll see if the viewer wants that or not. We see Club Shay Shay, pushing his cognac, but I don't know how the sales are. Right. Yeah. It's awareness, but brand awareness, is different than brand marketing and growth marketing are different things.
Absolutely.
Right. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of St. Martin, break it down to me in terms of how that came about, because this is a hair care line that's targeted at Black men with curly hair. And so how did that, obviously you're a Black man, you got curly hair. So it's like how I'm sure you had some influence as to it as well, but I know that you also similar to your other business ventures, partner with your wife on this as well. So how did that conversation start, and then what made you all go down that path to say, you know what, this is something that our people need?
Yeah. So I think that in operating barbershops for so long, you know, it was about a decade before we raised capital to launch CPG. We learned a lot about hair. You know, I started looking into trichology, which is the study of, you know, preventing hair loss. And I just saw this need. There's Baxter of California, there's Melanin Getz, there's all these brands that we carried in our shop. We tried to carry Bevel in the shop before. They're like, no, we don't do, you know, the pro channel, right? Professional hair channel. We do, you know, big box retail, mass market. And so there wasn't a professional grade product for 3A through 4C hair, curly, coily hair. And we're like, well, I'm becoming an expert at it. And all these brands really speak to people of color. They're afraid to say Black men. Right. You know, and we wanted to build a bold brand. You know, we wanted to build a brand that spoke directly to who I am, who you are. It's not a bad word to say like Black man. Yeah. We deserve to live life well also. And so really St. Martin came out of, you know, wanting to achieve self-actualization, not just for myself, but for all of us. And, you know, it starts with food, water, shelter, safety and security, so on and so forth. But like, we should be able to take care of ourselves outside of the barbershop as well. And we deserve, you know, amazing products that work for our scalp, works for our hair, doesn't dry us out, has us smelling great, has us feeling great. Like, we deserve to invest in ourselves, and we deserve to have people invest in us as well, right? Whether it's your girl or your guy buying this product for you, you know, we deserve that. And so we built it mainly from a brand perspective. And then as we started going down a rabbit hole of like ingredients that work and that were effective, we went pretty deep, you know, and invested quite a bit of bread in like creating the best products for us. In the same way it took, you know, 2 years to convince Wayne State that I was the right entrepreneur for this space, it took about 2 years to raise capital from venture capitalists, convincing them that I was the right entrepreneur to launch, you know, this more scalable company. Now they actually invested in us turning the Social Club into a franchise. But after a while, we realized it'd probably be smarter to develop this range of products first. It's going to be a little bit harder. That's proven to be true. And then once we are able to scale St. Martin, the market will tell us, you know, how many customers we have in Atlanta and DC and Detroit, so on and so forth. Yeah. And we'll be able to meet them where they're at with our physical barbershops to kind of elevate that experience with our product even more.
So you can kind of use it as a Trojan horse, so to speak, to kind of identify where the market is and then be able to go and physically serve those markets.
Right. And you know, the thought before was the Trojan horse would have been the shops, right? It would have been physical locations. Go to a market, build a community, and then launch a product on top of that. And after you build your distribution out, you know, 10 shops, 20 shops, 30 shops, now you've got built-in distribution and a bit of a moat because, you know, we can control what products we sell in our shops. Just a very difficult approach and a very capital-intensive approach, right? So we're going to do that, and we have partners lined up that want to open up social clubs. But it takes so much patience, bro. It takes so much failure. It takes so much money. It takes so much emotional intelligence. It takes so much faith. You know, it just takes so much to execute at the level that we want to execute.
Yeah. Speaking of, so you mentioned that you all have partners and have pitched to venture capitalists, things like that. What has that process been like for you all in terms of being able to scale the brand and scaling the business? Because that's something that people don't necessarily either have enough information about or always know how to approach in business, just kind of keeping my entrepreneurs in mind. So what has that journey been like for you all?
Yeah, it's been grueling, man. It's been, hundreds of phone calls, probably about 300 phone calls for 17 investors. And I would say, we're trying to find product market fit right now. I think on the barbershop side, we found product market fit. I think on the product side, we're trying to find product market fit. And I think, it's just going to be, it's going to be a matter of us really becoming experts at e-commerce like we are at operating barbershops before we can really reach our audience. We've got 15,000 emails of folks that have come through our barbershops, and we thought, well, we have all these customers, they're going to convert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that didn't necessarily happen. Even creating a lookalike audience, on Facebook and Instagram or Meta, it's like we're starting to learn how big that audience is that looks like our social club audience. So that's insightful and a huge opportunity. But it's hard, right? And so the reason why it's hard is because, one, it's a matter of those phone calls. I used to make 60 phone calls a day when I was at Kaplan. You got to make at least 300 phone calls to convert, maybe 5% of that. Okay. And so it's a numbers game. Yeah. And for a business like ours, that's, physical locations, capital intensive, that was a very difficult raise. And so you're trying to explain to the investor, we're going to open up barbershops and then we're going to launch product. Or we're gonna open up barbershops and then we're gonna create content out of those barbershops and then we're gonna launch product to the community that we've built physically and online with our content. And some people got it, most people didn't. But all of it comes down to, do they believe in you at that stage? Now here we are with a barbershop doing 2 locations, doing about $1 million in revenue. We've been open for 10 years, and we raised a pre-seed round. So we raised about $1 million at a $10 million valuation in 2022, late 2022 when shit was sweet. Yeah. It's not sweet anymore. No. The valuations aren't there. And I think the valuation is the least of your troubles. The biggest challenge of raising venture capital is often, in my opinion, the biggest challenge was not raising the money. Is once you raised it, now you're starting to get terrible advice. And you have to be an incredibly secure entrepreneur. You have to be incredibly secure in your vision to not listen to that shit. You know what I mean? A lot of venture capitalists have no idea what they're talking about as it relates to your business. Right. Okay. They know business, but they have no business talking about your business. And I think that has been incredibly enlightening. And I think VCs will tell you that. We don't know. That's what we invested in you. Yeah. So it's my job to have the confidence to say, I'm not doing that. Thank you. I'm listening to you, but I'm not doing that. And at the time, I didn't have that confidence. And I think that is the failure of this pre-seed round. That's the lesson. Trust yourself, right? And that's what I would say to any entrepreneur looking to raise venture capital. It's gonna be a challenge to raise it, but once you raise it, remember they invested in you for a reason. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget what you're trying to build, and don't listen to these folks. And it happens at every level. I just heard about a company that failed in the automotive industry. Listening to VCs, telling them they should, fix cars, and turn old schools into electric vehicles. And they were trying to build a whole other company.
Yeah.
And they're turning 10 cars into electric vehicles. It's kind of a side project to see what works.
Yeah.
What works first. So in my opinion, it's like you've got to be incredibly focused. You've got to trust yourself. Mm-hmm. You've got to listen, but then you've got to take all the information and make the decision yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And fail quickly. Mm-hmm. If you know it's not working, pivot. Mm-hmm. When I say pivot, I don't mean like change your idea. I mean like if you want to test what a VC says you should try to do, mm-hmm. try it. If it's not working, quickly change. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other conversation. How much bad advice I got? I mean, crazy stuff like, hire Yeezy to design your barbershops. You know what I mean? I'm gonna introduce you to Yeezy brand. That like, that I'm thinking kind of like, wow, that'd be crazy if Yeezy designed our shops. That'd be crazy. Yeah, this is what VC is about. I made it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous advice from a VC. Yeah,
for sure. I want to scale it back just a little bit in terms of for someone who has been able to get to that point where you are going to VC or leveraging VC and different investment opportunities to scale your business and look at franchising opportunities also to develop product for those barbers out there who just who are just doing their thing, hustling, might be working in a shop, might not. Do you have any advice to them on how essentially like they can max out? Because as you know, the stereotype is that, your barber got a side hustle and they do X, Y, and Z. Like you said, the one barber hand smell like weed probably was, selling it allegedly. But do you have any advice to those people, or it could be beauticians or I think I'm getting that right.
Yep.
Hairstylist, hairstylist.
Cosmetologist and barbers,
Yes. Do you have any advice to them on how they could max out? Because there's also a negative stereotype just in terms of like timing and professionalism, all those type of things. Do you have any like words to them? Like, this is how you could really like level up and take your stuff to the next level.
What's interesting, when I ask every barber that I hire a question, and the question I ask them is, how much do you want to earn per week? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes they don't have an answer to that question. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mike Jordan knew exactly how many points he had to score, and the statistics showed if I score this many points, we win. Yeah. So I need to score this many points per quarter in order to score this many points per game. Yeah. Then he had to do the hard part, which was go execute against some of the best players in the world, trying to stop him from doing that. Mm-hmm. They knew what he was going to try to do. He did it anyway. And so that's the advice, right? You have to become an expert first. Mm-hmm. You have to become an expert at your craft. And then you have to impose your will. And so in order to impose your will, you have to have a vision of what, it is you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's lacking, bro. That's lacking in this industry. And maybe in life. Yeah. But in this industry, certainly, I haven't come across a lot of barbers that really know what it is that they're trying to do financially. Mm-hmm. And I think, as it relates to community impact per se, right? And so I think, for me, my advice is like have a clear vision on what you're trying to accomplish. Now, all that said, I came in the game with a pretty clear vision and I was an expert, but the execution of that vision is also very difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Imposing your will when people are trying to defend against that is tough. So you're gonna encounter a lot of barriers as well. You got to figure out how to overcome those barriers. Mm-hmm. I think the best advice I can give to anybody in business is really understand how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. Yeah. And you can really control how much money is going out. You have to control your expenses. Mm-hmm. If you cannot control your expenses, it doesn't matter how much money you make. I made a lot of money cutting hair. I blew a lot of it. I raised a lot of capital from venture capital, in my opinion, right? Yeah. This is relative. I blew a lot of that. I burned a lot of it, right? Like, again, taking the advice of burn the money, grow quickly, raise some more, right? Versus being like in my mind, it's like, that's wrong. I have a profitable business. Why don't I just open up 10 more of these profitable businesses?
Yeah.
And then do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for barbers, you have to understand, like, if your bills are, you know, $2,000 a month and you're making $4,000 a month, how do you get your bills to $1,500 a month? Right? So now that spread is $2,500, and then you can invest, you know,
$5 or however you do
that surplus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's step one, right? But the way to maximize those earnings is like being an expert and then being professional. And I think the best thing you can do is go work at a shop that is professional to learn what professionalism looks like, whether that's in Detroit, whether you got to move to LA, whether you got to move to Miami, whether you got to work in a restaurant, like that's 5-star, whatever you have to do to understand, what professionalism looks like, you need to do that. Tactically, I think, you know, barbers or any service provider should be DMing everybody, right? I asked my clientele to patronize my business. I would go in, I would send a Facebook message and say, hey man, I'm a fan of yours. I would love for you to come and patronize my barber. I would love to cut your hair. Right? And so the moment I got an article published, I think it was in like Black Magazine or maybe Our Detroit. Like the moment I had a published article, matter of fact, it was Cranes.
Okay.
I was cutting a guy named Keelan Williams. He was a Detroit Lions player, and I cut him at his house. And I remember Cranes reached out to me about opening a business because Model D had written stuff up and other publications at the time. And I was strategic. I asked Keelan, I said, listen, I have a journalist that's looking to do a story on me. Can I have her come to your house? And there it was. Keelan Williams, Detroit Lion, getting cut by Sebastian Jackson, was about to open his barbershop. And I took that article and I spammed everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not difficult to kind of create your own buzz today. And so I think for any barber out there, any stylist out there, figure out how to create your own buzz, even if that's just showing your work, doing a photo shoot, having a portfolio, and then asking people, right, to support you through you providing them value. And I think when you reach out to somebody and say, hey, I want to create value for you, you know, you'd be surprised, you know, how open they are to that, to receiving that value. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's free game, man. Yeah. You're not going to charge me for that, are you? So what do you see next on the horizon for you, for Social Club, Shop Talk, St. Martin? Is there anything that we love to ask people, what do they see in their crystal ball so that we can see it come back in the universe? So what do you see on the horizon? Yeah, I love that I'm partnered with Zach Cunningham and Misfitted on Shop Talk. And the reason why I love that is because they're experts at their craft, right? And we have a lot of respect for one another. And I think that what I see with this production going forward is a production deal and major distribution. We've committed a year to one another, like, you know, him providing his services, me providing mine, and giving access to like the network that I have access to. And then the fact that we can do this so consistently together is just going to gain so much momentum. Right? We've already interviewed Charity. We've interviewed Aaron Coney, who is RJ Seiler's manager, does a lot of stuff for Big Sean. We've got homies like Mike Posner that we'll have on the show. Judge Greg Mathis has been on. So we've got all this stuff batched. We've got Sada Baby coming on. We just confirmed Earn Your Leisure. They're going to be on the show. Let's go. April 22nd. Love it. So it's like, I wanted to get started on this at the crib. We've done it enough, stopped enough, won, failed, started to gain momentum, did 5. You know, we've kind of been doing it on and off for years. We've licensed it to a major player who has their own kind of like whole platform. But now it's our turn. And so I'm really excited about
Shop Talk amplifying Detroit, amplifying my personal brand, shedding light on how good, Misfit it is. And I think today when you're creating a consumer brand, we're all creating media companies.
Yeah.
You have to create a media company in order to be a consumer brand. I didn't understand that's why I was so compelled to journalism and to business. Like I was a bit ahead of the game in that I didn't know this was the future of what it looks like.
Right.
Mr. Beast, content creation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I wanted to create this magazine, but I was an entrepreneur, right? When I came to college, I said I want to be a journalist because I want to own a magazine. Those things don't necessarily correlate, right? What I really was saying was I want to be an entrepreneur. And so I'm really looking forward to like building my personal brand through Shop Talk, telling incredible stories, highlighting incredible entrepreneurs and fathers, right? Dwelle and I, we didn't have a conversation about music. We had a conversation about being dads and how do we overcome failure as men and also make space, make room for our sons and daughters to fail forward and not, face the same shame that we might because we failed, right? How do we teach them differently?
Right.
And so those are the types of conversations we're going to have on Shop Talk. And I think those conversations will really enrich a community of people. And I think that St. Martin is going to help fund that. And I think Shop Talk is going to make space for us to really understand what conversations we need to have, and then we can have those conversations in our shops as well. So to be honest, Denzel, I think, man, it really comes down to like community conversations and really being a leader and having those conversations, and then the barbershop continuing to be the place where those conversations are also had,
Love it.
Yeah, and then product is going to just be kind of the fuel, on the fire to help compel or continue these conversations. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So before I forget, where can all the people tap in with you if they want to follow the journey, if they want to get some product, they want to get a cut? What's all your handles, websites, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I would start with We Are St. Martin on Instagram, at We Are St. Martin on Instagram, TikTok, and wearestmartin.com. And then you can follow me at Sebastian Who. That's SebastianWho. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Sebastian, we definitely appreciate you stopping by the podcast today, man. A lot of wisdom, a lot of gems that you dropped in. Grateful to be able to have this conversation. And I know we've been following each other for a little bit. And then I've been a customer at the shop as well. But it's great to be able to sit down in this platform and be able to hear about your story and the things that you're working on. And obviously, doing this is media here. And so I am a fan and acknowledger of what you're building with Shop Talk as well. And I love to see the growth of the platform, how it went from events and then starting to develop into this larger scale media entity, which is super dope. And then everything else that you got going on is phenomenal.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. One of my mentors, he said, this could be the first media company that has a physical location. And this was a Stanford professor. I didn't understand what he was talking about back then. I do see it now. I think we are building a media company. We'll talk in a year, maybe something different. Yeah. But I think we're building a media company that can empower our community, led by not only people like myself, but people like yourself, people like Rashad and Troy from Earn Your Leisure. Yep. Not only like continue these conversations, but also creating space for us to have safe conversations and heal ourselves from the inside out. Yeah. But I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
And the integrity of the platform and the research. And that you're doing it with wifey, man. That's dope.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's my ride or die. So No, I definitely appreciate that, man. And everybody listening, watching it, we're gonna tap in with y'all soon. Peace.